You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
The most important word in the title of this show is accused, because that is all they are, accused. Without question, they did bad, terrible things to undermine our democracy, as the undenied, repeat, undenied official documentation, the emails, the memos, and reports now reveal.
And now, The Edwin Black Show. Sponsored by the books of Edwin Black, available on Amazon and at booksellers worldwide. And now, here's Edwin.
Hello, I'm Edwin Black, investigative journalist, historian, and human rights author of 300 editions in 40 languages in 190 countries worldwide, including IBM and the Holocaust, War Against the Weak, and my latest scoop book, Israel Strikes Iran. It's right here. Ours is a show for opinion makers and decision makers, not mass clicks. So if you think our show's content is meaningful, spread the word. Subscribe for alerts at theedwinblackshow.com. And if you want to support our work, we need your assistance. Please visit theedwinblackshow.com/support. Your help, big or small, assures our complete and utter intellectual and uncensored journalistic independence. Go to theedwinblackshow.com/support and keep us independent. Today's episode is made possible and sponsored without any preconditions, requests, or stipulations by my just released scoop bestseller, Israel Strikes Iran, Operation Rising Lion, available everywhere across the planet in 2 hardback, 2 paperback, 5 ebook, and 2 audiobook editions, as well as a special commemorative hardback available only at Barnes & Noble. If you want an autographed copy or to see some wonderful reviews, go to israelstrikes.com. Remember, I only speak for myself and for history. The same goes for any of my guests. Today we welcome viewers from across America, including our 5 watch parties in the villages, Newton, Mass, Chicago, and Harvey, you're still in Tampa Bay. Good for you. And now Panama City. Overseas, I see viewers logged on from most of our usuals. I see Australia, New Zealand, Great Britain, Canada, Germany, Holland, France, Poland, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico City, of course, Panama, our big audience there, and Israel, plus other countries. If you have a question, place 1 short sentence in Zoom's QA feature. The Edwin Black Show, along with our YouTube site, speaks frankly and without tremor to a fragmented world seeking better understanding of our tormented past, our present, very, very tense, and a turbulent future, still uncertain. By the way, stay tuned for my special word of wisdom at the very end of the show, just before I sign off. But before we dive into our latest installment, which is on the accusation of treason, let's cover some pressing topics. Our world is burning, and in so many places. Item 1, the work of Operation Rising Lion, which was the subject of my book, Israel Strikes Iran, is not over. That is, the lion does not sleep tonight. Iran did not learn, and even now it is trying to reconstitute its air defenses with homegrown Bavar mobile radar missile arrays, any foreign help it can achieve. Russian S-300s and S-400s are not available to Iran because the Ukraine war has monopolized those units, and Russia cannot afford further humiliation of the Israeli attacks. So Iran is turning to China for its HQ-12 and HQ-16 defense systems, which imitate American and Russian defenses. Plus, Iran is desperately trying to reconstitute its axis of resistance by refortifying Hezbollah in Lebanon with weapons and salaries, using Turkey as a middleman. This has set up a desperate crisis in Lebanon because the official cabinet under its president, Joseph Aoun, is demanding Hezbollah disarm and obey UN Resolution 1701 to create a militia-free zone south of the Litani River on Israel's northern border. The Trump administration is pushing for this, and the good people of Lebanon simply want their country back. Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam announced the cabinet decision declaring, quote, "It's the state's duty to monopolize the possession of weapons," close quote, under the official Lebanese Armed Forces, that's LAF. Hezbollah denounced this cabinet move as a, quote, grave sin. Hezbollah terrorists are right now threatening Lebanon with a new civil war, and just last night they organized a menacing motorcycle run through the streets of Beirut. Once again, we see that the Mideast can be elevated to a collection of modern, peaceable nations, but only if Iran and its terror proxies are subtracted. Regime change. Yet Iran has no intention of being deterred from its genocidal, apocalyptic 12-year mission of destroying Israel. It still possesses 400 kilograms of 60% highly enriched uranium. Yes, it takes 90% enrichment to create a miniaturized nuclear bomb that can be squeezed into the nose cone of a Shahab-3 missile, but if they decide on a much larger weapon, say the size of a Volkswagen bus driven into a sea container, 20% is adequate. How much HEU do they need to create a 20% bomb? 400 kilograms. How much is missing in that bright blue 30B containment cylinder? 400 kilograms. American and Israeli bombing can resume at any minute. Understand the dynamics with my book, Israel Strikes Iran, available everywhere worldwide, and you can understand what is unfolding. Item 2, redistricting in Texas is now in the headlines. I'm from Chicago, where crooked politics is an art form. So when I was covering the Democratic machine back in my journalism days, the word gerrymandering, which most people are just discovering, was actually part of our everyday parlance. It works this way. The population is constantly shifting, and so is political support. To deprive the other party of votes, the districts are periodically redrawn, that is, every 10 years with the census, but often more frequently. The shape of these districts is stretched like taffy to ensure Democratic or Republican majorities. The obscure name, gerrymander, comes from, get this, Eve, the obscure name gerrymander comes from Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry, when in 1812 he engineered redistricting for his party with a district so geographically contorted, the Boston Gazette declared it resembled a slithering salamander, hence the term gerrymander. In Massachusetts today, right now, all 9 districts are held by Democrats, even though 36% voted Republican for Trump. That's 100% disenfranchisement. In Illinois, Trump received 43.8% of the vote, but only 3 districts are held by Republicans. The state of Illinois is so bizarrely gerrymandered that one district, the 13th, resembles a snake stretching across the entire state from the southwest to the northeast. Now shift to Texas, where most of the Democrats have fled the jurisdiction to stop the political process of adjusting legislative districts to fit the current decade. And they're trying to make sure it does not go forward by killing a quorum. They, of course, fled to Illinois, the pinnacle of political corruption and gerrymandering. In Texas, we see the fastest growing population increase of any state in the nation. More than 2.2 million people moved to Texas from 20 to 24. And by the end of this decade, Texas will be the most populous state in the union, largely from Latino and blue state flight. Trump won Texas 242 out of Texas's 254 counties for a 56.3% victory. Harris won just 12 of Texas's 254 counties, mainly urban. The Democratic Party is now at its lowest and most unpopular level in memory. Its chairman, Ken Martin, a few weeks ago said the party had hit, quote, rock bottom. It is no longer the working man's party that my parents knew in Chicago. Today, the Democrats threaten unions for support, as we learned just a few days ago from Teamsters boss Sean O'Brien. Democrats are now embracing socialism, communism, anti-Semitism, and anti-Israel hatred. True Democratic leaders, such as Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, a true presidential possibility, and Richie Torres, another gifted leader. These people are now out of step with the growing radical edge of the party, and that's radical from top to bottom. In a recent Quinnipiac poll, only 12% said they support Israel. The new leaders are anti-Israel flamethrowers, socialists, and radical social engineers, such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, New York mayoral candidate Zoran Kwame Mamdani, Israel-hating Minneapolis mayoral candidate Somali-American Omar Fattah, Israel-hating Bernie Sanders, and Virginia delegate Sam Russo, who heads the Virginia Education Committee. He just wrote, quote, Zionism, I'm quoting now, has proven how evil our society can be, close quote. So yes, redistricting in Texas will gain the Republicans 5 seats based on actual population growth and changed political belief. Latinos and young black men are swarming into the Republican Party. Trump increased his share of Latino voters from 36% in 2020 to 48% in 2024. Democrats don't like that. Now you know more about Texas and about gerrymandering. Remember, if it slithers like a salamander and looks like a salamander, it probably is a gerrymander. Item 3, I've asked for a complete boycott of Canada because of rising and unchecked dispossessing anti-Semitism in our neighbor to the north. I have a few of the many awful updates to share with you on Canada. Rising Jew hatred is now using the term apartheid-free zone to create areas and professions that are Judenrein, that is Jew-free. Activists in Mississauga, one of Canada's largest cities, are formally demanding the city council legislate an apartheid-free zone in the city in solidarity with Palestinians. Various teacher and medical societies are doing the same. Canada is rapidly becoming a failed state and now proposes to recognize a Palestinian state without even demanding that the hostages be returned. This as a clear reward for October 7th. And it's something that Hamas is actually citing publicly as a reward for its massacres on October 7th. Trump's 35% tariff on Canada should only be the beginning. Canada's legacy of eugenics, Jew hatred, Indian slavery, colonial exploitation, and its Holocaust record are all additional reminders that the friendly country to our north ain't so friendly anymore and cannot be trusted as a partner. There is a growing movement in the province of Alberta to secede and join the United States. Remember, Canada ain't our friend. Cancel your vacation plans and boycott every Canadian product until the maple leaf abandons its race toward fascism and Jewish disenfranchisement. I repeat, during the Holocaust, Canada was asked how many Jews would it rescue, and it said, none is too many. Remember that. I do. I think many of us do, and I hope the world does. Item 4, starvation in Gaza. I would just say that the recent first-hand investigations by presidential envoy Steve Witkoff, Ambassador Mike Huckabee, and recent in-depth live on-the-scene coverage by Fox News has proved the falsity of the narrative that Israel is deliberately starving Gaza when they are handing out 1 million meals per day and when hundreds of truckloads of UN food goes undistributed. Yes, the New York Times abandoned all journalistic ethics and ran a photo of an emaciated child with his spine protruding as a testament to the starvation campaign. But they did not reveal that this boy had been treated for cerebral palsy, and they also did not include another angle of the boy's brother standing right next to him in pale blue shorts, looking perfectly nourished. For Hamas, shooting people as they approach the Israeli food centers, beating them if they are caught within a U.S. or Israeli food bags, help create what I called strategic starvation, yet another war crime by this monstrous organization which deliberately starves its own people to blame it on Israel. But my words mean nothing. The damage has been done by organizations like the New York Times. And I can tell you just a few hours ago, Benjamin Netanyahu told Fox News that he's looking into a lawsuit against the New York Times for that photograph. And I can also tell you, within the last 45 minutes, I've been in touch with leading individuals in the United States of America who are activating and considering taking up their lawsuit. So New York Times, you better get ready. What needs to be done? The damages already occurred, but we must rescue the hostages, and British Shadow R-1 reconnaissance aircraft based in Cyprus are even now flying over Gaza looking for heat signatures and other surveillance to help rescue those hostages. Plus, the only way forward to create Hamas-free humanitarian zones managed by local and regional technocrats is to actually create those, shuttle the people in, feed them, supply the merchants. All this is starting to happen right now on a microcosmic basis. These zones can consolidate and become the new Gaza. That is, in the portion Israel does not rightfully annex, which will probably be a sliver around the exterior. Remember, Gaza was originally part of the Jewish state, envisioned by the League of Nations and the United Nations as part of the Jewish state. So remember, the Jews did not poison the wells. We didn't spread the Black Plague. We didn't use Christian blood to make Passover matzah. We didn't throw the Black Sox World Series. We didn't start World War I. We didn't steal the chips out of the chocolate chip cookies, as Henry Ford claimed. We did not burn a still pristine stone church a few weeks ago in Taiba. And we damn well are not trying to starve the children of Gaza. And if we are trying to starve them, we're doing a lousy job by delivering 1 million meals a day. And now to our main topic, the accusation of treason made by Director of Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard with the support of FBI Director Kash Patel and CIA Director John Radcliffe against former President Barack Obama, former officials, CIA Director John Brennan of the CIA, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, FBI Director Jim Comey, and former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. It is at this moment now being referred to the Department of Justice by Attorney General Pam Bondi, who is presenting the evidence to a special grand jury convened in an unknown jurisdiction. The most important word in the title of this show is accused, because that is all they are, accused. Without question, they did bad, terrible things to undermine our democracy, as the undenied, repeat, undenied official documentation, the emails, the memos, and reports now reveal. The charge revolves around whether Barack Obama himself, after Trump's win, cooked up and orchestrated what is officially termed an attempted treasonous coup and subversion of President Trump's first term by pulling firm, verifiable intelligence that Russia was not, repeat, not attempting to assist Trump's 2016 presidential campaign, and instead getting the CIA and others in the intel community with the FBI to elevate a junk memo alleging collusion with Russia, all cooked up by Hillary Clinton to distract from her email controversy. Most importantly, and here's the linchpin, the cabal of coup plotters could rely upon a malicious media to carry the story with the muscle of 100 pravdas to ensure that Trump could not govern, was impeached, and ultimately was charged and jailed. And they came close. Many of us in the careful press always suspected this was the case. For me, the first tip-off came in January 2017, early in January, just before the first Trump inauguration, when Trump criticized the intelligence community and Chuck Schumer went live on MSNBC to warn, quote, "You take on the intelligence community and they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you."
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
We in the careful press suspected all the leaks of the Russia hoax to be coordinated, but we had no proof, and the echo chamber of the mainstream media made it impossible to pursue. But now the evidence has been found. This has nothing to do with Epstein, because this story actually ignited weeks beforehand, weeks before the Epstein matter came to the fore. It was in late April and early May of this year when FBI Director Kash Patel discovered a so-called hidden room with many thousands of pages of Russia hoax documents, not filed neatly into cabinets, but stuffed into beige-brown burn bags. In all, about 287 pages of previously secret emails, memos, and other official and irrefutable evidence was unearthed. First, we have the previously unknown and classified 29-page Durham Annex. That is right here. And it's loaded with blockouts, as you can see. It's not a smoking gun, ladies and gentlemen, but rather a smoking water pistol. Much of it is speculation about third-hand Russian hearsay intercepted and translated from Cyrillic with multiple potential translations. The source of the interception is a secret intelligence source known only as T1. Really, the only reason this document is classified is because it mentions sources and methods. But why was it hidden? The explosive material is toward the end of this document, where Durham implicates Brennan and Comey in running with testimony that did not exist, running with implications of guilt and collusion that were never made, and yet all of it treated as real. That made this annex dangerous to the intelligence establishment because basically it implicated Brennan, Hillary, and Comey in an official document. The really explosive stuff, the heavy stuff, is in a whistleblower statement made by a key intelligence officer who refused to play along with the faking of intelligence. That's right here. From 2015 to 2020, this unidentified whistleblower served as Deputy National Intelligence Officer at the National Intelligence Council. And this guy was actually tasked to head up the investigation and prepare the official written report on Russian involvement or non-involvement in the 2016 presidential campaign. He and others concluded that Russia did not back Trump at all. But when, in early January 2017, just after Trump won and he was about to be inaugurated, he received instructions to focus as credible the discredited Steele dossier. He realized the intelligence was being rigged. When he asked to see supportive intelligence, he was rebuffed with the words, "You need to trust me on this." The whistleblower wrote these words as he was being pushed to, quote, "abandon my tradecraft standards" and, quote, "misrepresent my views." When this man persisted, his promotion was threatened. He functioned in his position from 2016 to 2022, but he has now been moved for security reasons to a post at the Space Force. While the conspiracy to frame Trump unspooled in so many ways, this whistleblower filed reports with the Secretary of the Air Force whistleblower office, since the Secretary of the Air Force was in his chain of command. Also during that time, the whistleblower was strangely approached by a DC law firm with immense Democratic ties, I have the name, and this included and led up to a March 6, 2016 street meeting on M Street here in Washington, where he was sought for information on any intelligence officers who would be willing to testify to Congress on election interference. The intelligence officers' whistleblower appeals were ignored. On March 28, 2022, this man sent Special Counsel John Durham a priority mail by U.S. mail. No answer. He then sent a letter April 18, 2022 to Virginia Attorney General Jason Moraes. No action again was taken. On September 29, 2022, he contacted the Office of the Director of National Intelligence to complain that the classified email servers were losing many, quote, losing many of my files. He states that he has never actually learned whether or not Durham was made aware of repeated whistleblower information attempts. Even though the information was being systematically erased or misplaced from intelligence servers, they were in fact retained. Where? In burn bags hidden at the FBI. Kash Patel gave them to Tulsi Gabbard. She has given them to Senator Grassley and Pam Bondi, and I have them right in my hands. Emails, letters, undeniable official documents in my hand. Right now, it's important to understand that this whole conspiracy would have gone nowhere without a completely complicit media that took improbable intelligence leaks that made no sense, asked no challenging questions, and rushed to judgment, rushed to a verdict, and tried to hound Trump out of office and into prison. There is a lot more to this story, and that'll come out in the days and weeks to come. But our question now, and we can't answer it, was it dirty tricks? Was it an effort at the highest level to subvert our democracy? Was it seditious conspiracy, as a member of my staff says? Does the statute of limitations apply? Legal experts say no. If the conspiracy to obstruct justice continues to this day, then the conspiracy continues to this day. All of this will soon be decided by a grand jury and by prosecutions, which may or may not proceed. But we believe that if you go to the grand jury, you're going to get a prosecution. The whistleblower I cited is just one of several soon to emerge in the public eye. I'm doing this show because other than Fox and a few minor networks, no one is covering this. That's because the media themselves are knowing co-conspirators. Gabbard's White House disclosures were a historic hour of broadcast live media, yet only Fox, Newsmax, and C-SPAN covered the event. The rest of the Pravda press ignored it. Remember, the mainstream press was the main vehicle for the plot. ABC Evening News didn't even mention it, which for me was a blunt force reminder of how far the legacy press has traveled from its original legitimacy and duty. There is a mountain yet to climb on this topic and a mountain yet to disclose on this topic, but we have started here, and now I will take your questions. All right, I'm loaded with questions, and they're right here. All right, the first question: how do you feel about France and the UK recognizing Palestine? Well, I think that France occupies a special place of dishonor and disgust in human rights, especially involving the Middle East. Of course, we know what they did in Haiti. They blackmailed the Haitians who had declared independence in the first decade of the 19th century. They forced them to pay an exorbitant price tag to buy back their independence. And then they took that money, made a bank out of it, and used that bank to finance a beautiful Eiffel Tower. So Haiti is an S-hole, and Paris is beautiful with an Eiffel Tower. We also have to remember that the conquest of Algiers in 1830 by France, that led to 1 million dead Algerians, and the infamous Algerian War in the 1950s, which killed 1 to 1.5 million Algerians. And we need to remember that France was, of course, an ally of Nazi Germany. Now, there's another special shelf of culpability here. There would have been a two-state solution for Arabs and Jews. At that time, the word Palestinian meant a Jewish Zionist. There would have been a two-state solution because on January 19th, 1919, just before the Paris Peace Con, there was a secret meeting, if you will, attended by Chaim Weizmann, the head of the Zionist organization, and Prince Faisal, who would soon be king, and he was designated by the Second Syrian Democratic Congress to conclude a peace with the Jews. And in attendance was Lawrence of Arabia. I'm glad you asked this question. And these guys signed a written agreement that said, you can have what is called Palestine. They said this to the Zionists. We support aggressive immigration and settlement of Jews into Palestine. All we want is Syria. Well, the British were okay with that, but the French stopped the Arabs from having their promised state that the League of Nations and the Allies promised them in Syria. Killed thousands of Arabs in the process, and out came Lebanon, and the Arabs were forced into a Syrian democratic state, which lasted about 2 weeks before the French took him down. And so Faisal was shuttled down to Iraq, made king of Iraq. Remember, the king of England is the big king, and he can make the little king. And of course, Faisal's brother became the king of a newly established imaginary state called Jordan. And we remember the UK, which is also prepared to recognize a so-called state of Palestine. We remember that it was the UK that pushed for a Jewish state, along with many other countries. The Balfour Declaration was just a British version. The very same words were issued by the Turks, by the Germans, by the Chinese, by the French, by the Americans. And when that was agreed, the Arabs said, why should the Jews get their state when we don't have the state promised us in Syria? So they took 77% of the Jewish state that was in the map, that was in the agreement, and they said, we're going to create yet another Arab state and that never existed. We're going to create it with a memo which was issued in September 2022, and they called it Jordan. So there was no Jordan, but they created yet another Arab state, and that was headed up by Faisal's brother. So the UK has a lot to answer for, and the French have a lot to answer for. And all of this is being done while Jews are being starved in the tunnels and skeletalized as hostages by Hamas. We hear nothing about it. We hear nothing about it. You and I are complaining about it. Trump is complaining about it. Danny Danon of the United Nations is complaining about it. But no one is demanding that Hamas or the Palestinians kick out Hamas, demilitarize, give up the hostages. But there's a funny thing here. At the same time as Europe and its partner Canada descend into this madness, the Arab League unanimously votes that October 7th was a tragedy, that Hamas must evacuate, demilitarize, and that's the basis upon which they will go forward with a peace plan with Israel. Thank you for your very good question. Next here. Newton, Massachusetts. That's Newton, Mass. How is it possible that since 40% of Massachusetts is Republican, there are no Republican seats in the state? I said, if it looks like a salamander and it is redistricted like a salamander, it is a gerrymander. It's politics. That's what was done. But the Democrats don't like to see it when the Republicans figure out the techniques that the Democrats have used in Chicago and California. And you know what's interesting? All the claims that this is anti-democratic, it's so anti-democratic that California and New York, those governors are now promising to further redistrict their states to further exclude Republican voters. That's voter disenfranchisement. Thank you for the question. Watch party in Chicago. Where is the 400 kilograms of missing 60% uranium and what can be done with it? And I have a message here from Stephen. Do I understand you correctly that Iran has enough uranium of any purity to produce a bomb and that another attack is on the way? Asked Steve from Chambersburg. Yes, you're right. They've got enough to make a big, this is not a dirty bomb. I'm talking about they have enough to make a detonation bomb, but the bomb will not be miniaturized and delivered with 90% HEU purity in the nose cone of a Shahab 3 or even in the outer space enabled GAEM 100 missile cone. It could easily be put into a Mack truck. It could be put into a Volkswagen bus. It could easily be put into a sea container and delivered to a place near Israel. So there's a race on to locate this. Now remember, they can locate this stuff because if they try to refine it more, if they try to bring it up to 90%, the molecules are going to be detected because it's got to be taken out of that blue canister. It's got to be ported in special conditions, and they have to have a number of cascades ready to go. And those cascades will have to take their product and put that into 2 metallurgy sites to create this metallized bomb. But we have to wait and see, because I believe new bombing by Israel and probably the United States can happen at any moment, and indeed has been vocally promised by both Trump and Bibi Netanyahu. Thank you, Stephen, in Pennsylvania, and my watch party in Chicago. Okay, here's a question. The question is, can Obama be charged and tried? Obama has presidential immunity in the same way that Trump had, according to the recent Supreme Court ruling. But that only covers his acts in the term of his presidency. So even though he decided to play a monstrous dirty trick in Chicago style, which he was from the south side of Chicago, it's typical of this type of dirty tricks we played in, that were played by the machine in Chicago, even though he decided to weaponize the intelligence community, even though all of that was done, he could say, well, I had a good reason, I was fearful, and he would not be prosecuted. But once he left office and continued the conspiracy to obstruct justice, continued the conspiracy, and that could be done by simply as publicly denying. Once he does that, he is not immune, and he can be charged. And lawyers are looking at this right now. Hillary Clinton herself and Bill Clinton have just been called to testify before the Comer Committee in the Senate. Now, ostensibly, it's going to look at Bill Clinton's 28 visits to Epstein's Island. I wonder what he did there. but I believe other questions are going to come out, and we may see historic times. Frankly, I have to wonder if any in the media could be co-conspirators. And the answer that's in my mind is no, 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 unless they knew the information was false or had reasonable suspicion that the information was false, in which case they were willing co-conspirators. Okay, folks, we're out of time. And for once, I'm going to close early. Wait for my closing word of wisdom just 2 minutes away. I want to thank my talented international team, Carol in Maryland, Sims in South Africa, John in Japan, Christine in Indiana, Holly in Nashville, I'll even say Virginia in New Jersey, as well as many others in numerous additional cities around the world. I'll see everyone back here in 2 weeks at 3 p.m. Eastern. You want to be a friend of the Edwin Black Show? Go to theedwinblackshow.com/support. Keep me independent. You want to hear me in person? Watch my website for events. Consult my events page at edwinblack.com. Until then, head over to any Barnes & Noble in the USA or any Amazon, Walmart, iTunes, Google Books, Kobo, or Audible.com platform in 190 countries across this roiling, toiling, boiling planet where you can find any of my 300 book editions, such as IBM and the Holocaust and my latest, Israel Strikes Iran. You want an autographed copy? Hit edwinblack.com and click books. Get access alerts to participate in live and future shows at theedwinblackshow.com. You'll see a much enhanced and exquisitely produced version of this show, lots of great graphics and music, plus prior episodes by subscribing to our YouTube channel at The Edwin Black Show on YouTube, and click the notification button like tens of thousands of others have. Follow me at Edwin Black Book on X as well as Facebook. And now for my closing word of wisdom. Are you transmitting ideas or just receiving ideas? I'm zooming out from our nation's capital. Bless all of you. Pray for all that is unfolding before our very eyes.